Thank you guys so much for joining us for today's webinar, Mastering Applied Epic Reports Part 2. We are so glad that you'll be joining us today and are excited to share today's content. In addition, for those of you joining us for the first time and you're not sure what Kite Technology is all about, we are a managed IT service provider and consulting firm serving independent insurance agencies and other businesses across the country. We've been around now for more than 30 years, and what sets Kite Tech apart from other IT providers is our expertise within the insurance industry. Many of our staff have previous backgrounds working in insurance, giving us that extra insight on what agencies today require to operate at a high level. We find that many agencies typically underutilize Applied Epic and don't really take advantage of many of the features that it offers. So our agency consulting team here with you today focuses on helping agencies use Epic more effectively so you get the most from your investment and improve your performance. Also listed here are some of the super awesome IT services that we offer. If you'd like to learn more about our IT or consulting services, please send us a message through the Q&A panel and we'll be sure to reach out to you. And drum roll for the introductions. I'm Lauren Roberts. I'm the Director of Agency Consulting here at Kite Technology Group. I've been working in insurance for several years and did work hands-on in an insurance agency and another one prior to joining Kite Technology. I work specifically with agencies who are focused on optimizing their use of Applied Epic, migrating from other systems over to Applied Epic. And I also do that wonderfully fun task of forensic accounting. So not criminal forensic, just forensic as in we got to go dig and find the problems. So I'm one of the accounting nerds. Yes, I am. In addition to that, we also have Jenny Honikin and Laura Whaley joining us today. Jenny, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll pass it off to Laura after that.
Sure. Hi, I'm Jenny Honikin, and I'm an agency consultant here at Kite. I just had my Kite anniversary this week, so I'm excited about that. It's been 2 years. Before that, I worked in an agency, working as the system admin, and so I I assist with migrations, but my bread and butter is optimizations, and I love reports, and I live for reports, and helping you keep your data clean. And Laura.
All right. Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. Can you hear me all right? All right. I am Laura Whaley. I have been with Kite now for almost 2 years, working as an agency consultant and also helping agencies who have been on Epic or are migrating to Epic. So great to be here. Go ahead and give it back over to Lauren.
All right. Fun fact about Laura, she does not like accounting. Please do not ask her about it. We all, we like to expand upon our expertise, right? That's all your strengths. We're going to hit on those. I always pick on her on that. All right, wonderful. So let's talk about today's agenda. So today what we're going to do is review some Applied Epic Reports areas, some of the main areas, which will consist of the opportunities reports. We'll talk through policy reports, interface, and a little bit about client contracts reports. Now, in addition to these reports that we're going to kind of be going over, we kind of want to give you an idea of what to expect as we go through each of these reports. Of course, you all know this is only an hour session, so we will not be able to go through all of those reports in depth. Our goal today is really to help you understand what type of information can you get out of these main reports areas. A lot of times folks don't understand or know really, what area do I need to go to get a certain type of report? What kind of information can I get out of those reports? So that is our goal for today. Please keep in mind that we do have a small group consult coming up in a little while. I believe that's in June or July. My marketing person will correct me when I'm wrong, and we'll make sure that you know what that date is by the end of this call or this meeting. But that is something that we will be going over the reports a little bit more in depth. It's an opportunity for you to get your detailed questions out. We'll build reports. We'll do all kinds of fun stuff. It's a very interactive session, so be on the lookout for the invite for that as well. All right, now I am going to pass it over to Jenny, who is going to get us started with our opportunities report. So Jenny, take it away.
All right. Well, if you're looking in reports in Epic, you'll see that opportunities is not the next in the list where we left off last time with that first session, but we're hopping around just to we're going to hit the high points of each one, like Lauren said. So in the opportunity reports, you have four main reports. You have a forecast, a hit ratio, a pipeline, and a sales report. And I'm going to just show you this slide just to tell you a little bit about each report, and then we'll hop over and just show you where they are in Epic. For the opportunities reports, you're going to want to use a forecast report to see what's coming up in the pipeline for a certain time period. So this all goes without saying that your producers or your sales teams are entering opportunities in Epic and using them and closing them and entering in target dates for the opportunities, things like that. With most of these reports, you have to make sure that the data is being entered correctly. It's the old garbage in, garbage out. So with the forecast, you're going to be seeing what's coming up in the pipeline for a certain time period. And again, it's dependent upon them entering a target close date on the opportunity. You're going to have a hit ratio report that's going to help you evaluate your sales strategies. You can get a percentage of how many were won versus how many total opportunities you have, and then you can break it down by the lost reasons, and those lost reasons can be customized in Epic for you. Your pipeline report's going to see everything that's open and grouped by owner. So the difference between the pipeline and the forecast is the pipeline doesn't necessarily have a target date. This is just everything that's open, and you can group it by owner. And then the sales report is going to take all of the won opportunities and quantify your current sales figures. And those also pull to the dashboards, the opportunity dashboards. So I'm going to hop over to Epic real quick and just show you these reports. Here they are. It's in the opportunities section here. Nothing really outstanding or anything for the forecast report. Again, you're looking for the close date. So here's your target close date, and you would fill that in with those criteria. That's the biggest one. And then for the hit ratio report, here's all of your different criteria here, and you can look it over, the actual close date over a certain time. So if you're looking for 2024, you would put in that manual date, or you could do like a specific date. So those are your opportunities reports. I don't see any questions about that. So
I was going to throw something out there,
is there
Jenny.
something out there? Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Please
So,
do.
so with the opportunities reports, remember you are looking at, and with any of these reports in the areas that we go through, the information that you can get on these reports is limited to the information that's in the opportunity
That's
area
right.
itself. So you can't really combine this information with activities. There are some hit ratio reports for activities for carrier and quotes. So you can certainly check some of those out. Those are still separate reports, though. They don't talk to opportunity reports. Opportunity reports don't talk to those activity reports. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at the data that's on these specific reports. And remember that if you don't have that data, like Jenny said, garbage in is garbage out. So if you don't have it, or if it's not being entered consistently, then that's definitely going to stop you from really being able to get a lot of this information out of the reports. In addition to that, we also recommend reviewing the configuration of opportunities. So if this is not an area that you're currently using, we would absolutely recommend that you review the configuration of opportunities, the sales stages, the products, the reasons why you might not have won something. All of those are fully customizable. So you are not stuck with, just what's coming out of the box. You can really customize that and make it work best for your agency. We know not all producers want to go through, like 12 sales stages. So we might want to make it a little bit more streamlined for them. And it looks like Laura has a question for us.
Going to respond back. Kimberly had put a question in chat. What if you do not use the AMMK in Epic? Is the opportunities report still useful? And to answer that, the opportunities report is actually independent of those activities in your marketing module, or any manual activity for that fact. So within Epic, you would add the opportunity, and the opportunity itself is closed as won or lost at the end. And that's where you're going to be able to capture that hit ratio and all of the data that goes into those opportunity reports.
Mhm. Awesome. Very
Yep.
good. All right. I don't want to spend too much time on that because I will. But some of those activities that come from the marketing module are the ones that you can use for the hit ratio in the activities
Yeah,
report. So
that's right.
great question. You answered.
Yeah, that is a great
You
question.
asked for more information than we gave,
Mhm.
or for less information than
Yeah.
we gave. I'll get that right.
And we do have the dashboard turned on our demo database. So this is what the dashboards, if we had actual data, that the opportunities data would also populate here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get fancy dashboards too with your
Yeah.
opportunity. All right, wonderful. Well,
All
Jenny,
right.
I'll go ahead and take over because I'm going to jump into policy reports. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, fantastic. So I'm going to jump right over into those, and we're gonna share on this one a little bit because there's so many different types of policy reports, so we want to make sure that you get all of the information.
This is where they'll want to spend most of their time.
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. Between policy and interface, those are probably some of the main reports for your agency. So what's in the policy report? So you have things like audit reports only if you've made sure that you have the latest report pack from Applied. So do make sure that if you do not have the latest report pack, that you reach out to Applied and ask them to load that into your database for you, because there's lots of cool stuff. I'll show you what to look for in just a minute to see if you have those. Your book of business, which has many, many, many uses, things like your lost business, new business. What is your current book of business? How much business do you have with Travelers or Progressive? How much volume is a producer producing, as long as their production credits set up properly? So your book of business can just give so much information and data. You also have things like the good old expiration report. Of course, that one also has many uses for auditing and looking to see what's to come. I mentioned lost and new business, but those of course come from the lovely book of business. There's the retention report, which Jenny is so excited to talk to you about. She did a special presentation on that a couple of weeks back. And then we also have reports like verifying policy commission. So if you're ever wondering, does your policy have the right commission agreement on it, or the right producer commission agreement, or does it even have an agreement? They're actually separate reports. They are separate from the book of business. They can't be combined. I know it makes me really sad, but you can get a lot of similar data in that report while also verifying that information. And then there's the famous with this, not that type report. So, let's say you're looking to do some cross-selling, some upselling to your current clients. Maybe you're looking for home with no auto, auto with no home, liability without property, package without work comp, whatever those combinations are that you're trying to upsell. You certainly can use that report and even some of the marketing functionality for that one as well. Just be careful, make sure you preview things before you send them. So let's dig into some of the reports and how you can actually use those. Now, I mentioned the audit reports. These absolutely help in ensuring that you're getting good data out of a lot of your other reports. So when it comes to things like premium and commission fields that are missing, agency commission percent, producers, servicing folks, all those different types of things. If you're having some issues with your data, there are some fantastic audit reports, and I will show you, I promised, what those look like, that you only have if you've got the latest report pack. If you go to the your reports marketing area and go to the policy section, you'll see here that there are several reports that begin with the words audit data. In addition to that, they also have an asterisk at the end of each of those reports. That is what indicates that that's a brand new report layout, or not brand new. I mean, these did kind of come out in like 2021 late, but but we still find that some folks don't have these. So if you go looking and you don't have it, you can reach out to Applied. But you do see that there are several, like we just mentioned, that you can go through and identify. Where are we missing agency commission percentage? Where are we missing, estimated commission and premium? Because without those numbers, your new business and your lost business type reports, or your current business, those reports are virtually useless if you don't have a lot of those data fields completed. So those really go hand in hand to make sure that you get good data out of things like your book of business report, expiration reports, and the famous retention report. There are also other reports outside of policy reports that are new. So there's also reports that have the asterisk in other areas as well. All right, so back over to our lovely little presentation here. Back when we talk about the book of business report, now we use this report for, I mentioned a lot of different things, so we also use this for auditing data. We like to create this report that we call the Monster Bob. I think we might have trademarked it now. So if you want to use it, you're going to have to call us up and just double check, but just joking. So with the Monster Book of Business, Bob, what we do is just drop a ton of data fields into a line book of business, or you could do it in a policy book as well. We like to use the line level information because if you think about it, that's where a lot of the data lives. And that's what you really want to just keep in mind when it comes to reports, is where does the data live in Epic and how do I get that data out? And so this is where you want to focus on a policy report. Where's the data located on a policy? Is it at the line level? Where's the PPE? That's at the line level. Where's the status? Line level. Where's the producer? Line level. So as you're just thinking through these different pieces, when you're looking to add layout information into your report, or you're looking to filter criteria, those data fields that are in those specific areas are what you're looking for. Some of the things that we like to keep in mind is if you are looking for a current book of business, as in what is in force as of today, you want to make sure that you get your criteria correct when it comes to a book. If we jump back over here, I like to do things visually. You would come over to something like this nice new build calculated estimated multi-layout book of business that has lots of layouts, and make sure that you're using policy effective date and expiration date with this relative date range of open through today or plus 0 days. I'm always going to say open through today and tomorrow through open. That's how we remember it. So,
And a sticky note.
yes, write it on a
That's what I
sticky
had to do.
note, put it on your computer. Open through today and tomorrow through open. So expiration date then would be relative date range plus 1 day through open. Now, keep in mind, that's not going to show you things that are effective in the future. So anything that's downloaded that's effective tomorrow or 30 days from now, that's not going to come into that report, because what you're really looking for here is what is current. Now, of course, you can combine all different types of criteria in any of the policy reports. You've got your policy dates, you've got agency information and structure, policy statuses, even to the point of, is your client active or inactive? Are they insured or a prospect? Is their policy contracted or prospected? Those are some of the key things that you have to make sure that you identify in the report. And if they're not being done correctly in your agency, then you may have an issue with getting that information into the report. So let's say by default, you're going to always do current client date or current effective dates, currently active business, always insureds, always active clients, always contracted, and a specific type of policy status. If somebody's doing a workflow and they don't follow that workflow and get all of those pieces in the puzzle in place, then you're going to miss some of that data on this report, because your criteria is what's pulling that information in. Looks like we have a lot of questions, so I shall pause for a moment and let Laura share some of those with us.
Okay. First question is, we're on Epic using both desktop and browser. If I do not have the latest report pack, what do I need to do to get that? just call into the support line. They will get that installed. It actually only takes a couple of minutes. So depending on their availability, they may be able to log in and do it right then for you. Otherwise, it's a very short ticket life. So that is relatively easy to do. For Chad's question, Chad has asked, what area of reports might I go into to see how many attachments an account or group of an accounts has had over a year, looking at profitability and so forth. If you go to your client reports, you can run a report on client attachments. And you can do by lookup code, a specific code. You can even go as far as if you're trying to see how many attachments are in certain folders, that's one of the criteria you can add there. So that would be the report that you would want to use for attachments. Ladies, I'm not sure if you can run a report on company or broker attachments. I've not found that yet. So if you're aware of that ability.
No,
Okay.
I have never run a report for those types. So I would say that you could also use the event-driven activity to gauge some of that information. So if you have like the out-of-the-box ATCH activity for add attachment event set up in the background, you could also run an activity report to look at how many attachments are being added. And that's if you're attaching to account or policy. So that would be good for, like attaching to the companies and brokers, because we don't always use lots of activities on the admin and accounting side. It's more so on the servicing side.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
I'm gonna go answer one more question and then I'll let you guys take back over. Christina asked, when multiple layouts appear in a report, how do you get the multiple layouts to generate to the Excel document?
Well, that's a good question.
Sometimes she gets tabs, but they're blank. So if you want to cover how to get those tabs and then address why those may be blank for her, and then I'll continue to answer some of these in chat.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. So good question. If you have a tab that is showing up as blank, most likely that is a summary type report or a report that is nothing but totals. Typically, anytime you see summary by, that information is not going to generate into an Excel. You can only generate that into a PDF version. But if you have an issue with detail not coming over into Excel, that means you've probably over criteriaed. I don't think that's an actual word, but I use it. So if you've added too much criteria, then that could be the reason why your detail is not actually pulling in. Or no criteria, it just kind of depends on what you're looking for there. But typically the summary is the one that's not going to show up. And there could be some others that aren't called summary, but they're built of formulas and totals only. So that's why they don't show up in Excel. All right, fantastic. So I'm going to jump back over and just kind of touch on some of these other types of reports. Your expiration report has a lot of policy information on it too. Almost as much, if not more information than some of the information is that comes in on the book of business report. For example, you can also pull in the renewals manager stage on the expiration report. So that's pretty awesome, because if you ran an expiration report and include your renewed policies and drop that little renewals manager stage in there, then you can present that to meetings. And when you're talking about the renewal status on, what's going on this month in renewals, you can pass that to your producers who may not be getting into Epic very often to say, yep, here's the status of all those renewals, expiration report, and my stage. So some really neat information on that. And you can look at that in the past to see missed expirations that have passed by. Most often, those are the result of issues with workflows and or policy statuses. So something to keep in mind. You definitely want to look back and see, do we have an issue with workflows? Why does this show up on your missed expiration report? What's the reason? How do we get it to stop? And then of course your lost business report, that's just built on a book of business. So if you take a look over into Epic and look at the policy reports themselves, let's go down and find our lost business report, which is right here. And look at that. It's based on the book of business policy book. So you're going to be using a lot of the same criteria, a lot of the same data fields. They've just formatted this report so that it is suitable for lost business, new business. It's about the same report. It's just with different criteria that you're going to add in. So think about your new business statuses, the effective dates, the cancellation statuses if it was going to be lost business, and when did that policy actually cancel? What's the effective date of that cancellation? And so you can do a lot of sorts on those too. Anytime you see this little multi-layouts, that's what that means. In addition to that, any of these reports that do have the asterisk on them, if you are a revert to default layout person, please don't do that on any of the reports with the asterisk. You will lose the entire formatting of that new report, and then you'll have to call Applied and say, hey, can you load those reports for me again? Just please, thanks. So just keep that in mind as you're kind of playing around with some of these reports and going along through that. All right, so I'm going to pass it back over to Jenny because she is so excited, like I said, to share some of this information on the retention report. She's promised that she's going to do an entire session on it in the future. So
that's funny. Yeah. So our retention report, this is one of my favorites just because I think it's so cool. It will calculate your policies that were retained over a specific period. So I actually just wrote a blog about this. So go to our Kite Tech webpage and read the blog for all of the details, but it takes all of the policies that expired during a certain time. So you're going to maybe do a year's worth of data. So your expiration date is going to be minus 365 days till today, or if there's a leap year, you can figure it out. And you're going to pull everything that expired. So every valid policy that expired, you're not going to include entered in error or any quotes, but you're going to include new, renew, all of that, and then all of your cancellations as well. And what it's going to do is it's going to total up your cancellation codes, like your lost business codes, and give you a nice percentage of how many policies that you kept during that time period. So it's really cool. Let me hop over and just see if I can show it to you real quick. It does take some configuration if you're not just using the out of the box cancellation codes. It's only going to take into account out of the box canceled insured's request, and canceled for non-pay. So if you have a non-renewal code that you're counting as lost business, or I've seen a lot of agencies use a cancellation code if the client has been as deceased or has sold their business, or if you've got customized cancellation codes, you're going to have to build the report. Go see my blog for that. But what you're going to do is you're going to put in your expiration date over the last 365 days. And you'll do it through today, and then you want it just to make sure that it's a full year there. You're going to exclude your, like I said, exclude your quoting statuses. So we'll take out the ECU, the marketing, the new business quote. Looks like we've got a lot of things in here as well. You're going to take out quote not taken, all of those things that aren't real policies and active policies. And then when you come to your layout, you're going to see it's going to break it down by producer, PPE, branch. I usually copy the producer one and add an account manager because sometimes we like to see that as well. And I'm going to turn off some of these. You could do it by policy type if you want, however you wanted to do it. That's the same with the book of business report. You can just switch it over. And we showed you in part 1 of the report session how to switch those over pretty quick. And let's print preview and see if we even have any data in our demo database. I just want you to see the totals and what it looks like, just because it's so different of a report. So here is at the end of this producer, it will literally count how many policies were canceled. Here's all of the policies that expired during that term. How many were canceled for each reason. Here's your math over here. And then at the very end of this report, let's see, 23 pages, it'll do a total for the agency. So here's your last producer. Here's the grand total for the agency. And then there's a summary report, a summary layout that will list out every producer, and then there's their retention percentage. So you can see here who's retaining clients and who's losing them. And then if you've got your layout configured, then you can see the reasons why you've lost the business as well. Maybe stop some bleeding if there's bleeding to be stopped. I know during COVID, there was a lot of closed businesses and there's nothing you could do about that. But this is just a really good tool to see, to identify what you can control and maybe help stop that. So yes, it's a love story. What can I say? All right. Yeah.
We do have a couple of questions. Oh, I was
Oh.
gonna go back to the retention report real quick. So retention report is something that had always been kind of scary over the years until Jenny came along and she deciphered and answered all of the world's problems of the retention report.
Not hardly, but
We're so happy to have Jenny on the team. But the retention report is something that tends to get, just overlooked, and folks don't really focus on that as much as they really should. But we definitely encourage making sure that you have good data and looking at a report like this to ensure that you are retaining business as you're selling business. So that you're making money. I mean, that's the point, right? Making money.
Yeah.
All right. Jenny, do you want to pause for questions for just a second? You have
Yeah, I do see a lot, and some of them are the book of business report.
Okay.
This one up here, they were asking about the effective and expiration date criteria. So I'll put that in open through today and then tomorrow through open. So if you're using the relative date range, remember it's reading your computer date, and day 0 is today, tomorrow is +1, yesterday is -1. So you think about it like that. So this makes it so that you don't have to update the date every time you want to run the report. This is a relatively new change that applies maybe just within the last 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 years probably now. Used to be we had to go in and update this date range every time we wanted to run the report. So, and somebody asked about making the criteria section bigger. There we go.
Awesome.
Yeah. So there we go.
Yeah, that was so exciting to me when I finally figured out like that whole relative date range and oh wait, we could just schedule book of business reports now.
Yeah.
That was life changing. It does feel like it was so long ago, but it was life changing. Do you want to jump through the example of the expiration report real quick, or
Yeah, let's do that.
got yours pulled up? So if you want to go ahead and pull that, that's great.
Yep. So here's the expiration report by expiration date. That's the report version that we're using, part of the new report pack. And Joe was asking an example of using it for renewal. So in that case, you would want to make your expiration date and upcoming renewals. So I've seen some agencies do these ahead of time for like 2 and 3 months in advance or 6 months in advance. But just whatever range you want to look at, you're going into the future. So if you wanted to say next month, you'd say +1 month. Your options here are days, months, and years. And you can do it through +1 month as well. And what that gives you is everything in May. So here's everything that's coming up that's going to be expiring in May. And in this case, I have excluded anything that's already been actions renewed in Epic. If I want to see those policies as well, just to make sure, then I want to include those. That's a unique criteria to the expiration report that's not on the book of business report.
And Jenny, that's where I was saying, I think that's what they're asking is, if you wanted to use this report for like your renewals meetings, then you wanted to include the expired renewed policies because you might have something that renewed yesterday, but when you're discussing that in your meeting, or if you're giving that information to producer or whoever, you want to include those because you want to see what the status is of those specific policies. And in some cases, you've passed the renewal date, but you're still waiting on stuff. So your renewals manager stage might say, still waiting on policy, or, whatever the case is. So, good. That's a little tidbit there for that one.
Yeah, and so the opposite of that is the missed renewals report, and I think there's a layout that's already set up, but a lot of these new report pack layouts, that's hard to say that 12 times fast. A lot of these don't have the criteria set for you, so you have to really think about it and set the criteria. They've got the layout set and it's teed up for you, but you have to finish doing that for yourself. But you would take just an expiration report, whatever layout you wanted, and instead of going into the future, what's upcoming renewals, to see what was missed, you would go into the past. So you could say minus, over the last month. And a lot of agencies like to run this just, at the beginning of each month, what was missed last month, and then you can look at that as well that way.
Jenny, we had 2 questions come in on the retention report.
Okay.
Jane had asked, how would you handle cancel rewrite policy status for retention reports? I know that's a big thing, is making sure that workflow is in place and that you are using the right status codes on policies. And then Corey asked, when I use a retention report and try to measure year over year, they're running it by department, but the result is so huge that they end up having to split that report into sections. Is there anything that they could do to potentially reduce the size of the report and still make all of the detail out, and make the detail invisible because they only want to see the summary report by producer?
Oh, so you're doing it by...
So his example, or their example, was they're running it by personal lines, just for personal lines department, but they're having to split personal lines into 2. And it looks like they're just looking for the summary, but the report itself is so large that they're having to split it because of the detail.
Are you printing just the summary and not the detail?
That would be my suggestion, is just make sure that the layout is only giving you the summary by producer. That would give you those results in one a good condensed format without giving all of the detail, without needing to hide the detail.
And you could add extra layers of sorts on the layout, but I would just run it, by personal lines department, and then you should get a list like this of all your producers. That's what the summary looks like. But email me if you still have questions. I can answer you through email.
And then to Jane's question about how to handle the cancel rewrite, it's a matter of making sure that you have the right statuses on your policies, correct?
Yeah. And I always say, if a policy is going to be rewritten, or even non-renewed, or the renewal's not taken, renew the policy first. And that way you retain, like if that had been a new policy for this past term, when you renew it, you're just taking actions and canceling flat on that due term. So you're just having it for, that 1 day, 4/4 or 4/24 to 4/24. And your previous term retains that it was, that was in force for the whole term. If you cancel at renewal on the expiring term, then it's going to show as lost during the whole term instead of just at the end. So, and you're going to lose the ability to report on new business as well, because you'll lose that new status code. So I always say, if you're rewriting, and a lot of people don't like this, but it makes your report so much cleaner and nicer, renew, cancel that renewed term, put the cancel rewrite on that, and you can not issue it if it hasn't been issued. Either way, it just has to have that canceled rewrite. And then for the new carrier, make a copy of that. Don't just renew and change carriers, but have basically two versions of this new term, one that's canceled, rewritten, and one that's a rewrite. So that's what we typically do for that.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. On to the next.
Yeah. Do you want to switch back over, or do you want me to keep sharing since I'm doing the interface?
You want to keep going on those? That's fine.
Okay.
We have plenty of questions to answer in the back. And we only have like a little while left, so.
Yeah. Yeah. So our next report, this is actually two reports that we have in the policy section. Verify policy commissions. There's PPE agreements and PRBR agreements, and they check for whether or not you have a commission agreement applied to the policy. And we're looking, if we go to our policies, it's looking for the checkbox. It's going to take forever. It's looking for the checkbox here on the line level. Use commission agreement. So that has to be configured on the premium payable account. So in the commission section of the premium payable. And so what this report will do is it will look to see if the box is checked, if this is a valid agreement or not, on the policy, and compare so that you can keep that data up to date. And then its twin sister report is the PRBR, and it would be this checkbox here on the producer commission. So one of the, let's see, here's the premium payable. So you've got your criteria, and you can look for just active policies open through today, tomorrow through open. Looks like you have to add that criteria to the list here. So you just click the plus to get your expiration and effective dates in there. Yep, there we go. Effective and expiration, you just push them over. And then as far as the criteria, you can look for only discrepancies, or you can look at everything if you want to see everything, but that'll be every policy. You can look if there's multiple commission agreements, if you're looking for anything that matches to that policy or just the one that's used on the policy. You can exclude or include policies without agreement, so the box isn't checked, or you can pick only the policies with the box not checked. So what I like to do when I'm looking for errors is I'll check for only discrepancies and only policies without agreement, so that I see all of the errors in one. And that gives you a nice report to run. If you're looking at the producer broker, then you can easily run that reassignment tool after you get your commission agreement set up. You can run that reassignment tool. If you're looking at the PPE, it's just a manual, go into the policy and check the box. So it's data cleanup for that. You always have anything to add? I'm sure you do, Lauren.
Only
your
because I
jam.
love this report, and I looked.
Yes, I know. That's your jam.
I looked so hard for this information for a while. This was like a really long time ago. This is one of those lessons learned type situations where I really thought that I could get this information in the book of business, and then I was totally disheartened to see that it's just a separate report. So also, you can't put servicing roles in this report, but it's great if you're trying to, look at your data to see if there are policies that are missing a producer, totally missing an agreement. There's the purpose of like the producer broker report is really, like Jenny mentioned, to look for discrepancies. I personally like to dump it all into Excel and then do some sorting and filtering. So a discrepancy would be maybe where somebody has changed the producer commission percent and it doesn't match what's in the agreement. It's also going to show you what the producer code is, what the actual percent is. This is where producer broker commission agreements really are super helpful, because that agreement, if you put a good description in there, should tell you if that's valid. So if you're looking through and you're seeing that, there's some type of criteria that warrants a different producer commission agreement or whatever the case is, it's a lot easier to find that when you have words to read, like new business or renewal business. Wait, how did this new business somehow magically appear on this wrong policy? Or there's two producers, they should have their split commission agreement, not this commission agreement. So it does make it a lot easier to see the things. And like Jenny said, if you want to do a reassignment, you can reassign new commission agreements. You can reassign from producer to producer, from broker to broker. Yes, I said that on purpose, because you cannot reassign from producer to broker or broker to producer, only within their own little areas there. So really cool report. Same thing on the agency commission agreement side. If you're just looking to see what's the volume of policies that we have that don't have a commission agreement on them, like we need to get this straightened out. Same thing on the producers. Even if they have commission percent, why don't they have an agreement? Let's get that configured and make sure it's on there, so we've got that consistency. So yes.
It eliminates the user error too, because I might be trying to enter 12%, but my figuring I might hit the 4, and then all of a sudden I've got 42% commission, and my data's messed up, as opposed to just checking a box.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
So here's the description here where you would see if there were a commission agreement applied. This little tilde tells you, there's a legend at the bottom, that additional agreements exist that match the policy. So I could check the box and actually get a percentage in there. But you see, our book of business is just out of whack because everything is at 0%. So our estimated commission is going to be 0, because premium times 0 is 0. And so we can look at that. The other thing that I don't see on this report, but you may have used an old agreement and it's expired, and that might still be on the policy, and you'll get an exclamation point there. But that is the same for the premium payables and the PRBR agreements.
Awesome.
All right.
Oh, and stay tuned for the accounting reports, because there's an accounting report that shows the agreements as well. What?
Oh, I love it. And finally, in the policy section, we've got the with this, not that report, and that'll give you accounts with one policy type that that don't have another policy type, so you can use that for marketing. And we see this a lot with like auto, not home, and you can do multiple. So you can say, I have auto, but I don't have home or fire. So or mobile home, or whatever, that kind of thing. Because hopefully, if you've got their car insurance, you want to get their auto as well. So it's good for remarketing, and you can use that marketing section. You can use that marketing section in the distribution to send emails out to the people in the delivery options here. You can send an email template saying, hey, we've got your auto, but we don't have your home. Would you be interested in a quote? That kind of thing. So that makes that kind of nice in there. I think if you've got applied marketing automation, it might make this obsolete, because you can do the same thing in applied marketing automation as well and probably do it better. So if you've got that, use that. But that's just a really neat report. Here it is down here, with this, not that. The one thing to remember is it's not going to pull across accounts. So if you have one client with multiple accounts, it's not going to look and see, do I have their commercial? Do I have their personal? It's not going to do that. It's just going to do within that account, do I have this and not that? So those are some really helpful reports in there.
Yeah, and it is fun to create like the marketing feature for some of those reports. So with this, not that, just be careful. Like I said, make sure you use your marketing preview before you send those out, because it can be a little tricky to get just the right criteria into, the policy and line levels to make sure you're getting the right information out. So be BOLO, again, be on the lookout for errors.
Yep. All right, so that is the end of our policy reports. We want to get into some interface reports, and we do not have a live database for interface, so we've just got screenshots for you in here. But we're gonna go through just in interface reports. You have your communication log default. So like the big communication log that you should be getting every day. And then it breaks the communication log, the other reports, into kind of the parts of the comm log there. So you'll get anything received. So policies received, claims received, direct bill commission download received, that kind of thing. You'll get errors, it all broken down by the different areas of download. You have information reports, and then your policy exception reports and your session error reports. So let me show you. This is what that looks like there. So you see, here's your communication log default here. And then you can see that it's broken down kind of into the sections there. So that's what's in there. So with your comm log, you can actually reprint the entire comm log from reports, from the reports section. You can reprint it in interface management. If you're, working suspense, you can click print and reprint communication log. But here you can actually enter some criteria for it. So you can see, let me see the comm log for the past few days, or, things like that. You can certainly pull that out. And then the section, you can pull out just policies, although they have that already built in for you. So here's what you should be used to seeing your communication log, and you see here's my issuing company, Progressive Northern, and then here's my errors, my policies received, and my exception report. So this comm log that I get every morning is like super long. And so the other reports in this section will help kind of break that out into better chunks that are more manageable. And if you're not using activities for download, use activities for download, and then you won't have to rely as much on the comm log report. But here is your received section. So if you just do like policies received, claims received, eDocs and messages received, here we have, if I did, this is policies received that I did. So here's Progressive Northern, and it's just the policies. Here's Sure Choice, just the policies. You can see that this one went into suspense, this one was replaced, this one was updated, and this one went into suspense. So that kind of breaks down your comm log for you, and you can do that with, like I said, with dates and with the different sections there. Your communication log error reports, this will only give you the errors on the comm log by the type of download. So in this case, here's my errors, and this is for policies, but you can do it for eDocs, claims, direct bill download. I recommend running this every day. Just schedule it to run every day. Schedule it to run every single day, and you want that report to be blank. If it's blank, you're good, no errors. If you get an error like this company is not configured in Epic, so I need to go out to the NAIC website, look up that code, see what that issuing company is, make sure it's entered in Epic, and configure it in interface. So those are your error reports, and you get it for all the different sections. And then your information report is just going to be kind of just general information about the download. Like, here's some that I found, like the contract number producer subcode is not configured. You can see that you'll get those, and a lot of times you'll get a lot of those. You can actually turn this off in settings, configure, I think, interface settings. You can turn those off because a lot of people don't maintain their producer or agency subcodes in Epic. But if your policy status wasn't updated, if there are multiple commission agreements exist, in this case, we changed the PPE from one traveler's to another because of our configuration. The download's going to fix our data entry errors for us, and we love that. And so we can see all of these. This is just the information reports. And then our policy exception reports, spoiler alert, you can get an activity for this as well. And then you can see your policy exceptions just on this report, and this will tell you have to configure this in procedures, interface management, company broker, download options, and then your exception report down in the bottom corner, you can do personal lines, commercial lines separately. But in this case, we've got commercial lines. If the premium increases at renewal by 10% or decreases, it's just a change. Either way, this one went up by 10.78%. I might want to remarket that. So that's nice to have just pulled out onto its own report. And then here's where I'm talking about that exception report area, interface, company broker, and then there's your exception report there.
So we did have
And
sorry.
oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Backing up for just a second, you might want to keep doing this one, but we do have a question about the activity codes. I typed in my answer, but did you show where you can configure the activity codes?
I did not, but it's on this tab here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one thing that I mentioned was you want to make sure that you plan that out, configure the activity codes first, like set up your description, your who owner. You want to make sure that that goes to a specific servicing role or specific person or specific work group. Don't use your user ID because that means whoever processes download is going to get all the activities. They don't want those. So, so that's, you want to make sure that you pre-work that, configure the activity codes. Then you can apply those in that status codes tab right there where Jenny was pointing that out. Things like a renewal, new policy, endorsements, cancellation, reinstatement, non-renewal. Just I'll go on for days if I keep talking. So all of those things that you would see on the comm log, with the exception of the errors. Errors, obviously, they're not going to generate an activity for you, but everything that just happens normally. It's a great way to send that notification to your staff person so that they can review it, be accountable for it, make notes. Just here's something that says, I acknowledge that this renewal happens and it exists. Or endorsement. I checked it to make sure that it's correct, whatever the case is.
And
Also,
it's a good reminder to update the renewals manager stage.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And then also it is my job to say we have 2 minutes left in this webinar, but we are going to continue. If you'd like to stay along, please absolutely stay on with us. We'll be done in just a little bit. But we had a feeling we might go over because this is a lot of information. Remember, there is a recording available, so you will be able to see that. We'll send you a link, be on YouTube and on the website, so you'll definitely be able to find us. But I'm gonna give it back to Jenny now. That was my little commercial, 5-second commercial.
Oh, that's fine. I see Crystal's asking, is there a way to pull reports and have them go into Excel? If you're doing this from the reports marketing section, your delivery options, you can always put them in Excel, even these interface reports. So yes, I'll just hop over here. Right now it's set to print, but I can actually save it to disk and go to Microsoft Excel there.
And Patty also brought up a good a good little note for us there too. She likes to add instructions at the top of her comm log to remind kind of what to do, and that is a really cool feature that you can add to any of your reports. That's in the insert tab in your reports layout. You can insert a label and you can type things all day long. You could put it in big bold red letters and say, here's the stuff that's broken, go fix your things. You can throw screenshots in. We went over some of that stuff in the basics, but yes, we love that. Patricia, that's a great, neat little function to use.
Put the user's picture on their report. That's what I always try to do. Everybody wants their picture staring at them. All right. So then you also have the last type of interface report is you'll see the session errors, and this is just the very last report in the list. Your session conflicts, and this might tell you that they're unable to retrieve results from the mailbox, and so your download didn't happen. So if you just go, you can rerun your Ivan's job pretty easily just from any download section. Just click actions Ivans and that'll rerun your job, but it'll also tell you about these unsupported transactions. Sometimes some of the carriers send transactions on an old code. Progressive, I think, is one that sends like a pending cancellation, and so you're not able to receive that, but then you get the reinstatement. So you'll see those a lot on there as well on your error reports, your session errors and your error reports. The last thing that I wanted to show you is that all of these interface reports, like the expiration report and the renewals manager, can go hand in hand, and you can kind of use the renewals manager as an interactive expiration report. There is an interactive com log, and it's called download results. So if you go to procedures, interface, download results, you click on that, it'll actually pop it open in a whole new window. And you can look at the different sessions. So you can do today, or you can do a custom range. And you can look at the different sections and pull them out, like everything that came through today, just the claims, just the direct bill, all of that. And when you click locate, I think I've got another screenshot here to show you what it looks like. So here, if you highlight a policy received, then this will show you this cancellation that came through, and it gives you a lot more detail down here. If you have an error message and you keep scrolling down, it'll show you the full list of the error message. And I really like to use this. I use this probably more than I use the reports, but I wanted to at least call it to your attention, because I don't know that a lot of people use it. All right.
I like it for searching for things when somebody asks me a question. Like I think there was a question earlier about one of the errors. This is what I like to use to go find what it is they're trying to explain to me. So if it says like producer subcode or something crazy missing, whatever it is, this is where it's a little bit easier to find some of that.
And I wish that I had screenshot it, because this area, if you go to the right, which I've cut it off in my screenshot, there's a recall hyperlink. And if you highlight a policy and you've corrected the error, that policy doesn't download. But if you click a recall, that's the same as logging into Ivan's Exchange and having it resent. So you don't even have to leave Epic to do that. So that makes it super nice. And if you accidentally recall something, especially direct bill commission, if you send one line, it's going to resend the whole statement, and you go, oops, it'll give you a warning. But if you click it anyway and you're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, you can actually cancel the recall on it as well. So yeah, it's kind of nice.
Did we mention that Jenny's kind of a download genius too? She forgets about, like, she always talks about data cleanup, but she really likes download too.
I do like download, yes. Do we have any more questions on the download reports, on the interface reports? All right. So our last section is the client contracts report. And basically we've got two of these, the expiration report and the service list report.
Yeah. And with the contract reports, there's not a lot of data to get out of those reports. Jenny's got a slide here that kind of gives you an example of some of those ways that you can use those reports. But this is another one of those areas where you have to implement the workflow in order to get a client contracts report. So, in a case where your agency does consulting, or maybe you do risk management, lots of things that would be something that you would bill the client more for on an hourly basis instead of just a flat fee. I've also seen some agencies use this for things where they've charged a flat fee, like a retainer for the year, but they want to put in what those hourly time entries are. So when they meet with the client at the end of the year, they can say, here's all of the things that we did for your $20,000 you paid us. So, whatever the need is. Now, you don't always have to use client contracts. In some of those cases, agencies will just use, a policy shell that says consulting fee. They'll do a fee transaction on that, not really needing all of that recording of hourly time entries and things like that. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of the difference between, using a client contract for services versus the policy screen. This is where and why you would use that for, recording those hourlies and things like that. So take it away, Jenny.
Oh, no, that's great. So really you only have two reports in this section, and they're the expiration reports and the service list reports. And so you think about your policies, you have expiration, your client contracts or your services, you have expiration, and then the service list is going to be like your book of business. So, you've got your summary and your detail layouts. The contracts are sorted by expiration date. It does include that exclude, renewed, expired criteria. And then your service list report is like your book of business, everything that's active. You've got your summary and detailed layouts, but you can report on the hours, contracted hours, hours worked, um, hours remaining, that kind of thing. And just to keep in mind, the services and the policies pull from different areas. So you can't pull one big book of business report to put everything in one unless you dumped one into Excel, dumped another into Excel and copied and pasted, but they don't talk to each other in Epic. So if you're planning on or thinking about using the services, just keep that in mind. If it's important for you to get everything, all your income or all your business in one report, it doesn't do that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Good point. Yeah, and that's kind of why we see a lot of agencies when they have those scenarios where they're charging a specific fee, whether it's because, all the business is captive or whatever the case is. A lot of times they'll just use the simple policy shell that they renew every year so that they can just bill that fee. But again, for those consulting type situations or where those hourly reportings are needed, the client contracts is a great function in Epic that's often overlooked. It's kind of sad and lonely. I'm just kidding. No, it's really, really functional when you're actually using it, and it's customizable too. You can create your own services and all of those neat types of things there. So we are now to the end. There is a question slide up because we're going to open it for questions. Although you guys have probably already gotten a lot of your Q&As out there. We have a note from Richard that says book of business or production. If that's a question of which I would prefer, I would say that they're two totally different reports for two totally different reasons. So I like to look at the book of business report for total volume and what's the estimate. So when you're looking at a book of business report, you have to keep in mind that that's not your financials. Those are not things that are actually transacted. I mean, it is if you're looking at the billed premium and commission, but if you're looking for like an annual amount, that's really where you're going to gear your book of business towards, or what you're going to use that for. So or if you're looking to see what's the volume of new business, like I mentioned previously. The production report is going to be just based on transactions. So if you're looking for total volume of transactions, not necessarily what you've earned, because that's what your earned commission report is for, based on your accounting methods and how things are being processed in the system transactionally and in the general ledger. That's what those earned commission reports are for. But the production report overall, just for transactional purposes, is kind of review total volume, what's been billed, was it billed properly, are there missing pieces, and so forth. And of course, you've got the production ranking report, which is really nice too, that shows you that volume of the production with those carriers. So if I had to take my pick, I guess I would say it kind of depends on what the data looks like in the system. I mean, if there's not a lot of good data on the policy level on the estimated premium and commission, I might look more towards the production report or those billed premium and commissions on the policies. So good question. All
And
right.
we are having a part 3 that is all accounting reports. So
Yes, yes, it is. So
yeah.
that one's going to be lots of fun. Please expect rabbit holes and please expect us to probably go overtime on that one. I will have our lovely marketing folks hanging out in the background going, time check, time check. Again, we really appreciate you guys all joining us today. Always good to see that we have lots of folks we can share our knowledge with. And we just want to remind you that, of course, if you're interested in any of our services, you can reach out to us we're using any of these contact methods here. And please do remember that we will be sharing a survey with you after this call. So if you would like to share your feedback, we greatly appreciate it. And additionally, there's a little perk behind that. You do get in the drawing for a free Epic assessment. And then, of course, lastly, we will have that small group session coming up and the accounting report session coming up. So keep an eye on your email. Be on the lookout for those next fun sessions that we'll have. So thank you again, and we hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.